last This is our last speaker series event of the semester. We are so delighted to have two people local to Boston joining us today. So it is my pleasure to introduce Reggie Jean, who's the executive director of the Haley House here in Boston. The Haley House, for those of you who don't know it, was founded in 1966 as a house of hospitality. And now they offer direct services like a soup kitchen, for example, as well as affordable housing, urban agriculture, education and training programming, and a social enterprise restaurant. So really spanning the gamut of services in our community. Reginald Jean is a seasoned executive professional with a background in nonprofit management and community organizing. He has 15 years of experience in nonprofit operations focused on youth development, especially in marginalized communities. So Reginald is a trusted authority and driving force in our field, and he serves as the executive director of the Haley House. And then after his remarks, he's going to turn it over to Jen Faigel, who's the executive director and co-founder of Commonwealth Kitchen. Many of you might be familiar with Commonwealth Kitchen. I'm learning that our speakers today actually know many of people in our community already. But it's a food business incubator and food manufacturing social enterprise. So they provide kitchen support, kitchen space and business support to 55 and entrepreneurs, many of whom are women of color, immigrants, et cetera, who employ over 150 Boston residents. So they have a small batch contract manufacturing process that gives recipe development, production, and value-added processing for wholesalers, restaurants, and farms, including Boston Public Schools also is one of the groups that they work with. Jen actually has a background in real estate development, which is amazing. She has, worked on affordable housing and commercial real estate focused on job creation and economic opportunity in Boston. And so, Commonwealth Kitchen has received a lot of awards, including Best Incubator by Boston Magazine and a Game Changer. Jen herself was recognized in many ways and selected as a fellow from the Barr Foundation in recognition of her leadership. She's a passionate advocate and activist for community economic development work in our own community. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here with us today. And I think I'll pass it to you, Reggie, first. Thank you.
I know, right? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Happy to be here. Really honored to be able to present and talk about some of the work that Haley House is doing within the community. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. So as was already shared, Haley House is a food justice organization. Our work started in the South End as a soup kitchen and housing and hospitality. We've grown through the years. We have about 110 affordable units throughout the South End and Lower Roxbury. We do urban farming programming for youth and families. We partner with the Mel King School. If folks are familiar with the South End, Mel King has a beautiful garden right on Dartmouth Street, and we work with the young people in that school to understand where their foods come from, trying different foods, nutrition, and things of that nature. One of the things that I'll talk about are other programs, but one of the things I really want to focus on, Haley House also has a social enterprise. The social enterprise has existed. We closed during the pandemic. One for the building of more affordable housing in Nubian Square, which is a community that was really economically disenfranchised many, many years ago, being able to build affordable housing, a new cafe of food that will be able to nourish, bring people together in the space. So I'll continue talking about that. So again, our main mission around social enterprise is Haley House transform food into a tool for social change. Like I said, we're based in Roxbury in the South End, and our approach is how do we use business for social mission? When we started our soup kitchen here in the South End, we realized we were nourishing and giving people food, but we weren't helping them gain employment opportunities, build wealth for themselves, have money to purchase the things and items that they need. So prior to the social enterprise in Nubian Square, we were actually teaching folks how to bake bread and sell that bread right here in the South End. So the Bakery Cafe, business as a force for good. We'll start at the bottom. So locally sourcing partnerships with nearby farms. when we opened the cafe, and when the cafe was open, that was something that was really important to us, is how do we collaborate and work with local farmers in our region to produce some of the affordable and nutritious meals that come off of our menu. So that was something that was really important for us. So that's the foundation of how we create our meals. And then ethical employment, meaningful jobs for those facing barriers. So one of the programs out of our social enterprise at Cafe was our transitional employment program. It was employment for folks that were recently incarcerated, coming home from incarceration. We knew one of the largest barriers to coming home is housing and employment. So we understood the responsibility of having a cafe and being able to employ and give folks opportunities that face some of these barriers. We were able to give that. So that's another thing that comes out of the Bakery Cafe. And then social impact, supporting community programs. We talk about workforce development, welcoming partners into the space. Again, I talk about Nubian Square. It is the most central space within Boston. It's the heart of the Black economic engine in the city of Boston. So ensuring that there's sustainability and some place for folks to come together to build and network with one another. So breaking barriers through employment, so culinary training, professional food preparation, that's something that we trained and worked with. In the new iteration of the cafe, when we open up later this year, we're looking for collaborators. There's phenomenal organizations like Commonwealth Kitchen, NECAT that does phenomenal entrepreneurship, skills building, workforce development, and understanding that we don't have to do everything. We can collaborate and work with other partners in the space to be more effective and have a deeper reach. Customer service, communication, and hospitality expertise is something that we realized was a gap when we spoke to partners around how can we work together and collaborate. Oftentimes traditional culinary training say, after 14 or 18 weeks of training, there's not a soft landing. Like they've gotten all this training, but where do folks go from here? And we realize that this social enterprise, this cafe can be that soft landing before they go on to further their careers. Personal growth, literacy, and financial management is something that's also part of the programming in the cafe for our transitional employment program. Career development, lastly, pathways to sustainable employment. We understand that working in a cafe isn't going to get you to where your goals are, but it could be a jumping point to get you started to where you want to go next. Pathways out of incarceration. So when the cafe closed, it was really important for the organization to continue to be in that space. When the cafe closed, that meant that the employment opportunities for formerly incarcerated individuals would stop. And we know that we needed to be there for our community. So we started a program called Lift. And what that was, the cafe was closed, but we continued to do skills development, participate and learn essential job hands-on training, resume building, interview skills. We built a supportive network of mentorship of people that have graduated for our temporary employment program when it was open to come back, mentor, talk about opportunities, folks facing similar challenges, to build a network of support we thought was really important. And then economic empowerment, stable employment provides foundation for independence. So what we started doing while we're rebuilding our cafe is we started bringing resources into the space. And one of the things they do when we meet with that community is they make a meal together, right? Because we build community, we know food brings people together. As a food justice organization, we know that food can be transformative. Growing food, growing community. So I talked a lot about our employment workforce development program. I'll talk a little bit about our farm spaces. So our urban gardens, located in 95 R. Thornton Street. Brief history about that. It was a city-owned land. There was no property. It was really ran down. The community said, we have developers coming and want to build luxury condos. We don't want luxury condos in our backyard. Haley House was running a farm at the time in New Hampshire, and they said, how can you work with us and collaborate to build a space that's for the community? So together with the community, invited us in, and we built an urban garden. It has about 46 community garden beds. a little less than half an acre of produce that goes back into a senior distribution for seniors that live within that community. And then some of the food goes into our programs. So that's 95 Thornton Street. I talked about the Mel King Garden. Local food networks, partnerships with nearby farms. I talked about how we incorporate that into our cafe. And then food access, strategic innovations bring nutritious options to underserved areas. So in our soup kitchen, we serve nutritionally appropriate meals. There's no fryers in our new cafe build. There's not going to be a fryer later or anything like that. We really want to bring healthy, nutritious, delicious meals to communities that don't typically have access to that. So that's really important for us. And then residents learn practical growing skills while beautifying their neighborhoods. So every year we kind of do a shuffle of different community members that want those community garden beds. It's very popular, and it's really grown over time. And the other thing that I kind of add to outside of just the urban gardening is community building. Roxbury has really gone a shift of gentrification. The neighborhood is changing. We talked about luxury condos coming into the space. So being able to bring those two communities together, the changing community and the community that has existed in the space through urban gardening has been a bonus for us. And then supporting food deserts. We talked about the Nubian Square Roxbury community and ensuring that there's healthy foods, advocating for policies that provide access to these communities, supporting urban agriculture initiatives, working with the city of Boston to ensure that there's partnerships and collaboration around a strategic vision is important to us. And then most importantly, educating our community on how to make some of the traditional cultural meals, but making them in a more healthier option and more healthier recipes. These efforts help communities reclaim control of their food sources. Residents move from consumers to participants in the food system. Education as empowerment. One of the beautiful programs that we run, and I say beautiful because it's continued to expand through the years. When I got here as the executive director, we were doing about 300 Take Back the Kitchen classes. This is a nutritional cooking class. It teaches young people and families together how to read nutritional labels, serving sizes, where your food comes from. It doesn't just come from the grocery store, what farm, how do you grow it? So cooking workshops, TBK, practical skills for preparing nutritious, affordable meals with local ingredients. So I talked about some of the produce from the farms comes right back into the programs. Community dinners, soup kitchens, shared meals that foster connections across diverse backgrounds. Community meals are really important for us. So during the pandemic, we continued to keep our cafe open, and folks weren't able to come inside because of the pandemic. So we opened outdoor dining spaces, so outside, so folks can still be in community, share a meal together. We thought was really important. And I always tell folks, our soup kitchen, it isn't a transactional service, it's a transformational service. We get to know our community members' names that are coming into our space. We know their stories. Again, we utilize food to build communities with the folks that we serve. And then the food justice dialogues in our TBK programs, we have conversations about equity of food, health, environmental sustainability, and really having young people and families think about food not just as something that we consume, but something that we participate in has been really exciting. And I'll also note that TBK is now into Boston Public Schools curriculums. So the schools adopted this program into their day-to-day curriculum. And then there's the ripple effect beyond Haley House, systemic change, modeling for equitable food enterprises, community resilience, strengthening neighborhoods through food systems, we think is really important. When you invite people in, educate them, give them the tools that they need, they take ownership of the food systems that they're participating in. And then individual transformation. I'll share a quote, just a young person that was in our TBK program. It's like, I can go home and make 3 meals for my family. And that's transformational in itself. Being able to feed yourself, I think, is really important. I think I say that Haley House offers a blueprint for food-centered social change. Our approach demonstrates how food can be a vehicle for justice across various communities. That's my presentation. Any questions? Oh, we'll save questions for the end. All right, sounds good. I want to bring Jen up here, who is a rock star. I came to Haley House 3 years ago. I was with the Y for 16, 17 years, and I've just been following her leadership and the remarkable work that she's been doing in Boston. So thank you, thank you, thank
You're
you.
very kind, sure. Thank you, my brother. Okay. Oh, thank you. He's got that for me. Thank you. I'm Jen Faigel. Okay, so how many of you have actually ever heard of Commonwealth Kitchen? Hey, my work here is done. Thank you. I don't even need the mic because I have a really big mouth. We're backwards. We'll start at the beginning. There, that's our beautiful kitchen in Dorchester. And so that story about where I come from, it's an important part of my story because I am, first of all, kid of a single parent, so grew up without resources and understanding like what the importance of having access to networks, to food, to housing, to job. And in my career started as an affordable housing developer. Spent 20 years, more of my time in my career in affordable housing than what I do now. And what I learned doing affordable housing is affordable housing, incredibly important, incredible for stabilizing neighborhoods, keeps poor people poor. Affordable housing, you pay a percentage of your income towards your rent. Your income goes up, your rent goes up. Affordable home ownership, you cannot use that home to leverage to invest in other things. So in fact, it doesn't actually solve the problem of poverty. And as a kid of a single parent and grew up with struggle, I was interested in what can we actually do that solves poverty. And what we know is that there are three ways in the United States, the most straightforward way: actual home ownership, small business ownership, and inheritance. Well, couldn't solve for the home ownership stuff in a place like Boston because it's so goddamn expensive, right? Inheritance, good luck. Unless we're doing matchmaking or something. And so I got interested in how small business development could actually be a part of the solution. In many ways, it's taking on what you heard from Reggie about how do you take folks who have been left out of the economy and first train them about the power that they have intrinsically in who they are and the connections that they can make in community, and where does that then go? And for some people that goes to, I'm gonna work in a hotel, I'm gonna work in a restaurant, I'm gonna work in a cafeteria, whatever it is. But for others, they want to have some control over agency and tell their story and tell their community story. And Commonwealth Kitchen is really, how do we help somebody who does not have access to networks and resources and relationships start a food business, which by definition is insanity because it is so hard. So if we cannot convince you not to do it, which is the first thing I try to convince you to, then what can we do to work with you along the path to build your business? And so we talk about food is our passion, but equity is our mission. So we did not start as a food organization. We started as an economic justice organization. We talk about, and we are still proud, no matter what the world we're in right now, to talk about that we are building a food economy grounded in racial, social, and economic justice. And we will continue to say that no matter what is going on at the federal government. So that's the benefit of working in a nonprofit. I can say what I want. So one interesting thing is you saw this in one of the last slides that Reggie had, and it's also our slide, which is that if you're going to do anything in the food system, it is a system that is enormously broken in all parts of that system. And so we could start by helping somebody start a food business. We can teach them how to get a menu or get a food truck, but if they don't have access to markets and education, and if buyers aren't going to buy from them because they don't trust or they don't know them, and lenders aren't going to lend to them because they perceive them as too risky, everything we do to help somebody start a business is going to mean nothing. So we have learned over time is our work has to, by definition, focus on three levels. We have to be working with individuals. We work with our businesses along a path. What do you need when you come up with an idea to start a business? What happens over time as you're building that business? It's episodic. What do you need over time to support you? You have to be in community because this work is too hard. Any entrepreneurship is really hard if you don't have connections and relationships. And frankly, most food businesses don't make it. So what are you learning all along the way? What are the connections you're making? And what we know in the world of gentrification is gentrification tears communities apart. They tear networks apart. Why is Reggie talking about networks and relationships? Because we have to build the infrastructure and the connective tissue for communities to be resilient on their own. And so that is an enormous part of our work as it is for Haley House. But if we're not looking at the system, we're not looking at procurement, we're not looking at supply chain, we're not looking at the climate impact of what we're doing, we will never fix or have our businesses be successful. So by definition, we have come up with this model that is enormously complicated and yet Really simple. So what do we do? I don't know. There's what we do. So we run essentially 4 core programs. I'm actually now talking about a 5th one, which I'll mention. So the first one, what most people know us for, is we run a shared kitchen. Simplest way is it's like a gym membership for food businesses. You can come in, you can rent a commercial kitchen by the hour. You don't have to buy all your equipment yourself. You can try it out. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you didn't lose your shirt. What we immediately learned is all y'all got some beautiful recipe from your grandparents or your family or somebody else, and you want to come and try it. And most of you won't be able to figure that out, but also you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to scale that recipe. You don't know how to take your food from your house and put it on a food truck. And so if we weren't educating our businesses and everything they need to know, permit, license, insurance, food safety, nutrition, what goes on the label, right? Because we're also dealing with food trucks and caterers and bakers and product companies. God help me. Like, our businesses will never get there. And we looked around and said, hey, Friedman, can you teach our businesses, them this? No. Hey, who else could teach these specific kinds of technical skills to our businesses? It didn't exist. So we, over time, have created a huge amount of education and training that's everything from what the hell is an SOP or a GMP? Why is that important to your business? Food safety, we actually have a specialized food safety training we have created, customized for work that we are doing. Great, I got a kitchen, I got a recipe, I know what I'm doing, I got a right label on it. Now what do I do? Well, if you have a business that is making Haitian pickles or West African peanut sauce or whatever it is, somebody like me, probably gonna be like, yeah, I don't know. I'd rather get something that's familiar to me. So what we found with our businesses is getting access to markets beyond farmers markets, a handful of kind of small businesses that are willing to take them on, enormously difficult. You make a product that's unfamiliar, you're a caterer doing something unfamiliar. Hey, big corporate office, you should work with our Haitian business. It's too spicy, they won't show up on time, I don't know if we'll like the food. Nope, I'm going to Panera and getting my chicken wraps, right? So a ton of our work is building those networks and building those relationships. And that looks like everything from a partnership with Whole Foods, where Whole Foods will come in twice a year, meet with our businesses to see their labels and look at their products and give them advice. It's at MIT, we took over the Student Center food court. We have 3 immigrant-owned businesses that run the food court. We got MIT to agree to pay for all of the infrastructure. Our businesses showed up with their pots and pans, signs all there. Students pay with their dining cards. All 3 businesses successful in the first year, profitable in the first year. I know, good, right? I left the kitchen, I was saying to Reggie, I'm sorry, I'm late, oh my God, I left the kitchen today because we were doing tasting event. The tasting event today was for Boston University, the New England Revolution, and 2 large catering companies. Both of them are $30 to $50 million a year catering companies. One of those catering companies works with our businesses every year on the MIT graduation. Last year, one business did vegan carrot cake for the MIT graduation. It was a $30,000 order of carrot cake. Holy God, right? They said the same thing, and we all said, we're gonna figure it out. That's the point of having all the people we have in our employ, is that we're gonna help them figure out 150 sheet cakes, how do you do it? But we also had to go to the buyer and say, love it, amazing, you're gonna do it. You know what? 50% paid in advance. Because business don't have any money, they can't afford to do this. That catering company, Gourmet Caterers, you all should use them because they have committed to $150,000 in purchasing directly from our businesses every year. That's strategic partnerships. So when we talk about the partnerships we work on, increasingly we talk about these as values-aligned partnerships. If you are not going to come to the table and do what needs to happen for our businesses, we are not going to work with you. Because for too long, what we would do is we would do events, and you would get some brown person standing there handing a cookie and getting the little crumbs. And the buyers would say, oh, isn't that great that the business has got an opportunity to market themselves? They don't need opportunity to market themselves. They need opportunity to sell. So a lot of our work is also then coaching people and teaching them what you need to know. You want to work with a food truck? You have to guarantee them $1,500 every time they go out, or they will lose money. So a lot of our work is that education, but then it's that linkage and connection. As if it's not enough. We also are a manufacturer. Why do we manufacture? What we saw with our businesses is we had a salsa company doing fresh salsa. Why the hell is the fresh salsa we get at a farmer's market so expensive? She's doing everything by hand. She's buying those local tomatoes, she's processing by hand, she's using 3 or 4 very part-time staff. Those staff are not well trained. She's not good at training them. It's a very slow process, everything. Like, it's the dumbest thing you ever seen, honestly. This particular business was in 200 stores doing it this way. She was in Whole Foods, still doing it this way. Okay, this will never work. So typically in a business like that, what would they do to scale? They would automate their process. Well, if you don't have any money, how are you automating your process? So what's the alternative? You outsource your production to something called a co-packer. In our case, we call it a co-manufacturer. Most food that all of us eat is made by a co-packer, right? We've all heard the white label, right? All those weird words. That the Cheerios we get, it's one company. The microwave popcorn in the United States, it's 2 companies. The baby formula in the United States, it's 2 companies. And everybody remembers this during COVID, if you were paying attention, at where all the shortages were that happened. So here's the problem of consolidation in our food economy, right? There it is. Move that to our salsa company. We tried to find a co-packer, could not find a co-packer who would work with fresh tomatoes. They work with frozen tomatoes. Why? They're consistent. Same sugar content, same water content, same, right? She works with local corn and local others. Nope, too hard, too complicated. And oh, by the way, the minimum run's about 3 times what she could afford. And by the way, you got to pay in advance. So she was stuck. This business, she's making it herself. She's in 200 stores, amazing. What does she do? I look at it and say, wasn't this a labor problem? She needs on-demand labor with skilled staff when she needs it. And that skilled staff also needs access to equipment to partially automate that process. So that's what we did. I did not realize how hard it is and the reason that nobody does it. It's really inefficient. It's really complicated. Managing all of the food safety regulations. We have products on menus in Children's Hospital and the Boston Public Schools and Harvard and Whole Foods. The risk is real. And so we have to take all of that very seriously. So it makes it enormously complicated for what our staff does, but it is the thing that is allowing our businesses to get into enormous markets. So this year, Boston Public Schools has tikka masala on the menu. It's from one of our businesses. They started in our kitchen. They scaled to our manufacturing. We are processing it for it. That is $250,000 worth of tikka masala. Largest single purchase for that business. Amazing. Up next is Jamaican jerk sauce. That will start probably in the fall. We're finishing how we're going to do that for the Boston Public Schools now. Amazing. Here's the other thing that happens when we have manufacturing capacity. Our businesses don't need us all the time. No matter how big they get, we have a business in TJ Maxx, others in Whole Foods. Surprisingly, small batch is still too big for many of them. So we needed to figure out how do we fill up the rest of our schedule. So we started looking around at all this stuff about food waste. Everybody's heard about the problem of food waste, right? And like on-farm waste, like there's all this surplus. So we all know, right? The fall happens and all the tomatoes come in and we're really excited. And then we're like, oh my God, I can't eat another tomato, right? And all the food banks have the same problem because tomatoes are perishable. So what happens to tomatoes? They end up in the trash. 40% of all food that is produced in the world is thrown out. 3rd largest contributor to greenhouse gas in the world is food waste. And I'm like, okay, we can make marinara. Like, what's the problem? So we developed recipes for farmers where farmers could come to us, bring us their surplus. We will process it for them. We'll put it in a jar, give it back to them. We'll sell it to them by the unit of the finished product. They turn around and sell it to all of you at a farmer's market. Pestos, tomato sauce, pickles, whatever it is. But farmers say, wait a minute, that's great, but actually I don't really want it back. I want to be a farmer. I don't want to be a salesperson. What else could you do? So we started taking those same products and selling them into these big accounts. So in addition to that tikka masala that's at the Boston Public Schools, so is marinara. The marinara that we did last year was 50 tons, God help me, of surplus tomatoes, all from Massachusetts. 50 tons is the equivalent of, like, we did this, it's 8 school buses or 7 elephants. That's how much tomato that was. It was great. Boston Public Schools, Springfield Public Schools, that's where all of it went. What we're now also working on is one of the projects we've been working on is this vegetarian fritter. So those of you who are nutrition geeks will be interested, or climate geeks will be interested in this one, which is we got asked to work with farms in New England around cover crops. Cover crops are really important for improving soil health, which is really important for climate resilience. There is a cover crop called yellow field pea, which we don't eat. There's a pea. It's nutrition. It's protein. Why don't we eat the damn pea? Because it's really little. And it's hard to cook. Commonwealth Kitchen worked and developed it into a falafel. We call it a fritter because you know what a falafel needs? It needs a sauce. And you know what we do? We now take our fritter and we upsell it with the sauce of the mole or the West African peanut sauce or the tikka masala, and that's also on these menus. So at the Boston Public Schools, our veggie fritter is also on that menu. It's a simple thing that we are doing, right? We have a kitchen, we have staff who know how to make stuff, and we have connections to farmers, and we have connections to buyers. But what is happening is, because we have these connections and we have a mission, it is allowing us to do this incredible multiplier effect that I did not. I'm like, what the hell is happening? This is amazing. So just some of the impact measures of what we're doing. We've helped launch over 300 companies. Effie's Cookies, McRae's Candies, Quinn Popcorn, Clover Food Lab, Roxy's Grilled Cheese, Jamaica Me Hungry, Suya Joint, Fresh Food Generation. I could go on. Started at Commonwealth Kitchen. Some of those are national. 150 at least are still in business. I told you, we care about our mission and the impact we have. 85% are women and BIPOC owned. On average, that's about 80% are women owned and 85% are BIPOC owned. And you put them together, you get those numbers. Those businesses, $60 million a year in revenue. And you see what the rest of it. So that's what we're doing. God help me. And that's just the rest of it. But so that's the model that we have. People ask me all the time, well, where did you learn this from, Jen? That's amazing. And who was who taught you how to do this? And I will tell you, nobody. My superpower in this work is I don't come from this work. And I'm not afraid to ask questions and to say, why are we doing that? That's stupid. Why is it that every apple in Massachusetts public schools comes from Washington State? It's stupid. Why are they all wrapped in plastic in the city of Boston? That's stupid. We should just fix it. And so a little practicality in our world, and I think we would all be a lot better, don't you think? Anyway, so that's what I do. There you go.
Actually, you know what? Why don't you?
Quick questions. We're going to do
Yeah,
because
we will
then
do.
we have to.
That was amazing.
More
Thank you
things.
both. I have to say, really, what a high note to end our speaker series on. It was just so inspirational.
Over the end? Oh man.
Yes, you are our last speaker series of this
Thank
semester.
God you guys are done.
Okay, questions from the room and from online. Great. And we'll try to take a few.
So ordinary, more typical mainstream manufacturing is kind of more automated, more boring, has less employment goals and things like that. And so even with all those shortcomings, I kind of want to ask about times that you've engaged with people from that world. Either have you had any alums from your program who ended up actually producing a sort of more automated manufactured product, or do you have advisors in that world who sort of cross-fertilize ideas with some of your folks?
All of the above is the answer to that. And so we have a business called Hillside Harvest. It is a Jamaican jerk and marinade sauce. Started in our shared kitchen, making it himself. We took him over and started manufacturing for him. At the same time, we helped him get into Whole Foods and multiple other accounts. He got into the Brookline Public Schools, Cambridge Public Schools. Boston wouldn't take him. Whatever. I'm not bitter. We got him into larger distribution, got him into Big Y and Hannaford's and some other accounts. He graduated last year. He's at a traditional co-packer now. He is now scaled through, I think he's in like 600 stores now and growing. So absolutely, our intention here is how do we fill the middle between artisan and the traditional marketplace? And as we do that, how are we then getting the traditional marketplace to say, y'all need to start working with these small businesses and you need to start working with local produce. You need to be working with the farmers. You got to change your model. One thing we have seen is that you guys got to talk to the engineering school because somebody needs to hack the equipment. Because part of the challenge is that the equipment is not the right size or scale for the kind of work that we're doing.
Great, thank you.
Hi, thanks for all the work you do. It's really impressive and inspiring. I know you said you don't come from this work, but I'm wondering, you said you asked a lot of questions, but are there any books you read that you recommend on just food systems or economics or any other resources?
Because you didn't come from this either. What do you got?
So my background's in finance. Yeah, totally different. I think it's being able to think outside that box. When Jen talks about her superpower is not being from the work, so you innately come with all of the questions because you know nothing. And I think like hearing those answers, bouncing some of those ideas off of others, kind of gets you to where you need to be. I think for me, being in the math, science, I'm a problem solver. So when you look at social movements, like we want to solve the problems. We want to get to the bottom line. And if I have to ask 30, 50, 100 questions to get to that, I think I continue to ask those questions. And I think the other thing too, Jen talked about a lot is collaboration, understanding that we can't get to that solution alone. So working in collaboration with other partners and understanding that the person that you might be working with, they might already have the answers for the solution that they're looking for. Is just how do we work together to get them there?
And the other thing I would just say is that the theory behind what we're doing is something called human-centered design. If you know that, which is our starting with our businesses, they're our North Star. So everything we've done in our program is coming from what do our business owners need. Every piece that we do, I did not want to be a manufacturer. It's really hard, but it's the thing that's going to make it work for our businesses. We're working now on access to capital is the next one because we know it's a problem and I cannot get anybody else to fix it. And so anything you look at in design theory, design thinking, human-centered design, and then starting with why. Why are you doing this? If you don't know why, you don't know what you're doing. So.
Hi, thank you. That was very inspiring. So of the 50% businesses that don't sustain, can you maybe give us top 2 reasons why?
So businesses don't make it because we as consumers don't want it. They're not solving for a problem that exists. That's usually one. We had a business trying to make like cornbread. Is there a need for cornbread that we had that we were missing? Where was it? Right? So some of it is, and that's the point of the kitchen is here's your chance to try and test and learn. And does anybody even want it? And then money, resource, capital, always. Biggest reasons why our businesses fail. Because otherwise, we are there with all the education and training and market access and all the rest of the pieces. And so we're creating the opportunity, and it's do they have the right resources and networks and connection? And frankly, for many of them, they started as a hustle, a side hustle, and how do they turn this into their full-time job? It's very hard to make good money doing it. And so if you are low income and you have no safety net and no resources, it's another reason why it's very hard to sustain your business over time if this is the only thing you're doing. If you don't have cash around.
Okay, we also have one question from our online viewers. You've mentioned several of your products are being sold to BPS. Can you comment on if and how the recent changes in the USDA LFPP program have had impacts on your operations and partners?
It sucks. What's happening in our federal government, we all know this, like, oh my God. And I know the dean is going to talk a little bit about some other things that are happening that the USDA programs, the domino effect of stopping the LFPP, the local food promotion program, the local food in schools program, there are huge numbers of farms that are all planting right now. We're getting calls from farmers now saying, so what happens if we grow it and no one will buy it? And we're going, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, but we'll figure that out. So we, Commonwealth Kitchen, absolutely are already. We have about a $200,000 worth of funding that is gone already. Funding we thought was coming, going to be gone. So absolutely, this is a moment for all of us to be, it's sobering, right, in everything we're doing. And certainly in this moment, the number of people who are hungry, right, I feel like I'm back in the start of COVID again, where the number of people who need to eat and aren't able to work, and therefore, like, what's going to happen to our food system? You would think that Robert Kennedy might be the one thing he might do good is in this part of the work. So far, we've seen nothing.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. One. I think we have time for one more.
Yeah, my question's for Reggie, because obviously we're your neighbors in the community next door. And what do you envision as some of the challenges for your organization in the next couple of years? And how can we, as part of that community, uplift the work that you're doing and help support that work?
That's a great question. So having been at Haley House for the last 3 years, I think one of the challenges or things that we're working on is effectively telling our story. I think because the organization does so many great things well, the messaging may get lost. Here in the South End, folks may know as far as Soup Kitchen because it's very visible and some of our housing, but folks in Roxbury know as far as social enterprise. When I came to the organization, right after the pandemic, the cafe was closed. We're, building on relaunching it. Folks were like, what are you going to be doing in the meantime? We still had a farm, we still had housing, we still had a soup kitchen to run. So I think one of the things that we can look to is one, volunteering in our soup kitchen. We have a phenomenal experience for folks. Our soup kitchen is 100% volunteer led. So we have local volunteers, Boston College students from a Pulse program, Northeastern students. It is open to anyone to really see the work that we do, roll up your sleeves and be a part of that work, and then talk about the work that's happening at Haley House. So one of the things that we're doing next is rolling out our strategic plan and really looking at messaging, branding, and marketing to talk about the impact and the work that we do, because it's really important. We talk about housing, we talk about reentry, like we're in Boston. It's one of the most expensive places to live. So we want to make sure that we're doing this work well, but we can't do it alone. And we got to continue to share that message.
Can I?
Oh, yeah. The Food Nutrition Innovation Institute, we partnered with Haley House on our fall dinner, and it was a great event. We had some of the reentry individuals come to the dinner with us and made a meal together. And so we should do more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's great. Can I take maybe our last question, 1 minute? How do you coordinate? I'm curious, like in Boston, there are a lot of people doing service provision and this type of work. I mean, you clearly know each other. How do you coordinate at the local level or beyond?
I don't think there's a right answer. I'll share my answer. You find people that are as passionate about the work as you are. Our schedules are busy. We're in demand for many other things. Like Jen and I have run across each other many of times, and we connected before this event. And I said, I love your energy. We need to talk more, right? And sitting here and learning more in depth about the work that we do. So the next step for me is to follow up and figure out, how do we collaborate? How do we support, right? It may not be a collaboration. It might just be showing up, supporting, talking about the work that Commonwealth Kitchen is doing. Again, I think there's ways to also be strategic, but also just really finding out who is really in line and in tune with your mission and the work that you're doing is one way that we strategize on how to move this work forward.
And I would totally agree. And I would add to that. People always say to me, holy moly, you're doing so much. You must have a staff of like 100. Our staff is 25. 7. Yeah. And they are mad at me, but that's okay. No, but we do it through partnership. We do it through alignment. We do it through, what are you good at? You stay in your lane. You do your lane. I'm going to do my lane. Where is it that Haley House and Commonwealth Kitchen can work together? We want to take their graduates to have them be new businesses or employees of ours. We're going to help them get the restaurant back up and running because we know how to do that, right? Stay in your lane, find the places that work. My experience having done community development my whole career is when I work with other organizations that do what I do, we end up in a fight of who's smarter and who's better. The minute I work with an organization that brings something different to the table, then I know you got yours, I got mine, and we understand that there is alignment in what we're trying to accomplish. What's our North Star? That's when we see an enormous multiplier effect of what we're doing.
The other thing too is I had a humbling experience is in our previous iteration of our cafe, Haley House led the workforce development, ended the hiring, ended soup kitchen and everything else that we were doing. And I said, we need to pull back. There's phenomenal organizations doing workforce development, specifically with reentry. How do we collaborate with them? What is the need? So we talked to those partners and they said, what we need is someplace for them to start working and getting experience. We can provide that. And we need you to provide the workforce development. So that's where organizations may have to step back and say, you know what, you're a better partner at delivering this piece of it. Let's work together to make that happen.
Thank you so much. Can we do another round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. It's been really wonderful to have you both. So thanks for being with us. And I think we look forward to continued partnership and hopefully we'll see you many, many times again.
You're looking to volunteer, come
Yes.
see us. You're looking for some internships, come see us.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.